We don't actually have to do the Pledge of Allegiance since we, don't have, I don't know if that's gonna get us.
Get a couple of us in there so that
Since we don't actually have the flag in here, we'll just, we've already called the meeting to order. We'll just proceed from there.
okay, so roll call. There's nobody on the computer.
No, on the computer.
Okay. So John Ross, Brian, Mike Laverty here, so quorum. We have a motion to approve today's agenda. Motion. A second.
So John motioned and Mr. Lindsay
second.
seconded. Motion carries.
Mhm. Then we have a approval of the consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. A second. Okay, John seconds. So we have a approval on that. Have any requests or responses from the audience? No audience?
No audience except for Chief Vance.
Yes, Chief Vance.
And Jake Crane said that he may join us once they're wrapping up. They had a meeting inside that room where they needed a vote counted and recorded, so that's why we're in here.
Yeah.
But he may join us later.
I heard something going on. Okay, old business. Item number one, we had the request from the Rotary Club for information over the 4th of July meetings, and I believe I understood that Captain Romo had passed information on along to Rotary. Brian, have you heard?
Yeah, I'll jump in for Captain Romo. He attempted to email some of the information to Mike Overby, pardon me, and the email kept getting kicked back. We've spoken to Mike Overby since then, and he said that his business email was no longer active, and so he'll need to provide us with a new one. But we did send it to Martha Ashley as well, and so I believe she received those. I don't know if she confirmed that or not. But we passed that, and what they were asking for was the purpose statement that we had for the Firewise committee and a couple of other documents. So I believe they have it in their hands now. They're open to helping us. I saw Mike this weekend, and he's open to coming and attending meetings, and he offered maybe grant writing assistance or things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We have an update on the community wildfire protection grant update. Is that in your court?
Brian,
That's something Brian
be honest with this. I did speak to Rick Smith. There was an email chain that went out this week. I think it was on Tuesday. Nope, today's Tuesday. It was yesterday. And it was basically putting pressure on higher ups to release the funding so they can get started. Since we're halfway through the summer, I sent an email of support, supporting that group as it escalated. And I know that Senator Pete Coppels was CC'd on that email. So we're anticipating that we're going to get some traction and get some word of this fund.
This is the $30,000 grant.
Oh, my mistake. I was thinking of the Cimarron Watershed Alliance.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of that at first too, and then I got to thinking, oh, is that
You're right. You're right. So I don't have an update on the CWDG.
okay? And on the Cimarron Watershed Alliance, that's my understanding too. But for directors there, we had to vote on some things and policy updates and things like that the state was requiring before they released the funds, and Rick has indicated that's all done, and funds will get released soon.
As far as the CWDG, I spoke to Captain Romo this morning. I don't think we covered that topic, and if he told me, I don't remember, so I apologize. I did take some notes, but specifically.
And that was a grant to update our CWDG.
So CWDG, I think it requires for us to have a comprehensive plan. It's pretty involved, so I don't want to speak out of turn. But
The deadline is 27, right? So, okay, for the update.
Okay.
And so we have suddenly 6 months less than this year or something to get it updated.
Push that.
And the village is working on a comprehensive plan, and I don't know if those work hand in hand.
Can't remember if that grant or that update is mostly work that Captain Romo would do, or if we hire a consultant with the $30,000. Fuzzy on that.
I don't think we've hired a consultant in the past.
Okay. Okay, old business number 3 is the Firewise application status. That one was in my court, and Captain Romo came and helped me a couple of weeks ago and got that finished and fired off, and just recently got the back. And I guess got a certificate online, but do we get an actual gold-plated certificate somewhere that gets hung in City Hall? And I know we get some signs as well, or we ask for 2 signs in the application, so I guess we get some kind of official signage committee as well.
I tried to print one before this meeting and it got taken off the printer, so I'm not sure it's in somebody else's file. So that certificate, and yes, we do, I think, get a plaque of some sort. And then 2 signs that I know of, and then we can decide as a group where to display those. I like the idea of their Village Hall also, maybe even in this reception room for that, so people can see that. Good advertisement.
I remember seeing some chatter back and forth on doing some blast thing to let people know that we got passed, but I wonder if we don't run off some copies of that and stick it in the post office and a few other public places where people can see as well that, you know, official Firewise community.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Anything else on that one? Is there a next step on the Firewise process? I know we had to answer questions about money spent and whatnot for, you know, education and slash and all those kinds of things. And if I remember, it says actually for 2026, which is only half over with so far. So I don't know if there's more reporting and how it proceeds in the Firewise thing now that we're official Firewise town. But
Yeah, I'll let Captain Romo elaborate more on the future states. I think the hard work is done now. Now it's just up to us to kind of implement these things that we've said that we will. As far as all the bookkeeping, if you will, or record keeping, if you will, the village fire department can handle all of that. So, but as far as next steps, you know, I think some of the things that we have on the agenda today and some of the future states will just start knocking out. We all have ideas. We just really needed the perfunctory step of being classified as Firewise, and then from this point, we can start moving forward with implementation.
yeah, in that application process, I didn't read anything that thou shall make monthly reports or annual reports or semi-annual reports or do this or do that. So it's just kind of,
Yeah.
But Captain Romo's probably knows better, but
Yeah, we'll
what the
take
next
his lead.
steps are. Okay, new business item number 4, voting approval for the Firewise secretary. I know we talked a little bit to John last time about possibly being secretary, but I think that was kind of tabled or put off or whatever. And I don't know if we've explored a 5th person for the committee yet, or have.
That's where we left it. Yeah, I was trying to find a fit. Any of your Fire and Angel friends wanna?
Well, I talked to Jeff. We're slowly pushing him into the position of being in charge. His wife is one of those.
Jeff, this is the caretaker.
No, Jeff is.
Okay, yeah, talk to them if they're interested in.
I mentioned it today, which is crazy.
Because they put you open.
Very cut. A 16-foot trailer, a 12-foot trailer, dump trailer around.
Well,
Six feet already.
Yeah.
And the people down. They split everything we cut before that. We- Church group. come. Lot of hands.
Good. Okay.
there was
The
wasn't there some
secretary
conversa-
Go ahead.
wasn't there some conversation last meeting about, something on the village's website or whatever, advertising that we were looking for another member of this committee or.
We put it out there.
Put it out on the fire department's social media and website. To be honest with you, I don't know that we get a lot of hits on the website, even when we post job postings. A lot of people, but
Yeah.
we can do that. Maybe you can put a sign up here at Village Hall.
Maybe you put out, but yeah, maybe a little, we got the certificate. Let's keep asking people.
Yeah, put our thinking caps on.
We know anybody that,
Jillian, she's small.
is she that busy?
She's the dark sky.
I know, we need her energy over here. Good. She's
She's
good.
gonna talk to her. They're gonna be gone for so
Okay,
here's time to rest up.
yeah. Yeah, it's that kind of like that educational outreach energy that,
She is good. No longer involved with the church committee, so she's still the accountant for church, but she's not on the committee. She's doing firewood, Angel. She's our safety officer. We need. She's the one that goes around and reminds you, put your plugs in, put off the chainsaw.
safety.
Helps,
Yeah.
Make a note, Shelley.
okay, so we'll just kind of keep working that one and all, till we find a fit person. Okay, item number 5, Firewise chair and vice chair exchange. Talked about that, a couple times between Brian and I. How do we go about doing that?
Yeah, so I think I'll call for a motion. I'll request a motion. I guess I can't call for a motion because I'm not a voting member, but I'll request that on behalf of the Firewise committee, that someone calls for a motion so that we swap positions between the Firewise chair and the Firewise. Your position is, right,
Vice chair.
vice chair, because you guys have mutually agreed to swap positions, because you've taken on that position with the Cimarron Watershed Alliance, and now that we have a better picture of what the roles and responsibilities were, president or chair and vice chair, that you guys have mutually agreed to swap positions, and if there's no opposition to that, just vote on it.
Do that like now or in the future?
I think as of today.
Let's tell them quorum.
Guess we got a quorum, so we can do, so.
Yeah.
I so moved that we pass that. Swap through the actions.
Second that. All in favor? I,
Carried by 2.
I mean,
right, Brian's an I too, so. Cannabis vote, vote on that, so Brian is the new, chair and Mike now is the vice chair.
Just for a point of order, it was John Wright. John Ross called for a motion to swap the positions of chairman and vice chairman between the two position holders. And that was carried.
A chance to finish his notes there. Item number 6, Angel Fire Good Neighbor Agreement. Not sure what the question is on that item.
I've spoken to Mark Manley. We've gone through all the revisions that he has made. My plan was to print that. This is throwing a real monkey wrench in that.
Okay,
But I do have a final copy of what we can provide for the citizens.
Okay.
We just need to approve it. I think you all have had a chance to review it. It's the same document that was circulating. If you feel comfortable with that. If you like, we can take a brief intermission. I can go print a couple of copies of that so we can all make a vote on it. Would you guys prefer that?
Probably so, particularly John, if you're familiar with these.
Let me just go print a few copies of that. If we can table this until the end.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think I have the wildland fuels update as well for Captain Romo. He sent out a document. We've had several deployments lately, and so we were a little bit backlogged, but as far as all of the pickups, we're currently at 0 backlog. Andrew, our primary / operator, has been doing a killer job, and he's even picking up those old piles that have been sitting around Angel Fire for a long time and stopping by people's residences. We're planning on leaving a note that's just a formal note. Hey, if you can get these piles a little bit closer to the road or just make them so that we can actually access them, we'll be happy to pick those up. I think a lot of them were left on the side of the road because either out of reach of the boom or just too far into the car.
Now, the Girl Scouts have several piles over. Would it be possible for us to bring it down to the sliders?
Yeah.
We can just load those up in the new dump trailer.
Let me not commit that until I have a conversation with Captain Romo since he's on today. I don't want to bite off something that he has to.
There was some talk about him coming out there and getting them. But with our new skid steer and the trailer.
I don't want to speak out of turn. Generally speaking, I think as long as there's not dirt or rocks or debris in the piles, as long as there is just the. Yeah.
This is, most has been there about.
So, being with Firewood Angels, I think we would be able to waive the fee / disposal. To be clean.
Well, some talk coming up there and burn. Might do better, I think.
Yeah, my preference is if we're gonna burn something, that we do it in a controlled environment like the pit with our firefighter crew standing by and not in the.
Even with the monsoons, it wasn't comfortable. Bring it up there, but
Maybe a few months of monsoon.
Yeah.
Not 2 days for sure. Yeah.
Or 2 feet of snow this winter would be that good too, so.
that'd be good.
If you'll excuse me, I'll go copy that good neighbor agreement. Just give me just a couple of moments. I'm sorry to.
Okay.
So much up here.
So that's basically the Fire Adaptive Committee with the Defensible Space Ordinance. It has a different title. Because good neighbor policy is the same as National Forest Policy. But it's basically that says because of the Defensible Space Ordinance, they're doing 3 feet from the house, 10 feet, 30 feet. Well, on a half acre lot or even an acre lot, 100 feet out, is the neighbor's lot.
Yeah.
So it's an agreement that says, a license and insured, some sort of agreement between neighbors to say, yes, you can come onto our. Then our lot to protect to defensible space ordinance specs, insurance specs, or, well, I think it's tied with the defensible space ordinance. But some of the people can put into place, and so how some people are like, no, don't come on my line. There's liabilities. Other people, please cut my trees and take them away. So we're just putting together a agreement
Now,
that makes it.
have we gotten any agreement? Sure.
But Mark Manley has put the final read language, and he's a part of the committee. He's just not here today. And so, yes, it also will apply with them as, I don't think, and this is where I won't speak for Mark the Resort, but I don't think green belts and stuff like that are being talked about at this point. Maybe, I think it's the residential lots.
It's my understanding.
And in my opinion, green belts don't need to be cut at all. That needs to be left wild, and the residentials need to be. So, but the residential lots that the resort owns, if it's a neighbor, and he's good with the language and recommended it for us.
And I think there's areas of the green belt that are wooded that are immediately adjacent to one's property and just as much of a problem, so, and I guess, I don't know if the corporation owns the green belts or if the village does, but you know, there again, I doubt any of them would mind if you or I went and cleared, you know, some trees that
Yeah.
over our property line, but it was on the green belt, but technically it could be a problem.
And it's the liabilities. They just want to make sure it's just, you know, and I get saying an insured worker,
Yeah.
you know, goes on and there's indemnification because you're working on this property.
It's gonna be interesting, the evacuation routes when that happens. I know Rick is pushing, because supposedly that's been approved again, but they're waiting. And for the official approval or the release of the funds or whatever. But every time now that I'm on this committee, I drive around and like, man, awful lot of right away. And you just see where there's like little trees all the way out to the bar ditch, and then you look and you say, the electric service is, you know, 50 feet over or 30 feet over, and that'll be a big project, but it'll be a big endeavor to work homeowners that think that those trees are theirs on their property.
Exactly, that's gonna take a lot of cooperation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So this will conclude your, you could just conclude the meeting as the chairman, and then like, as of the end of this meeting, you'd be the chairman, you'd be the vice chairman. That's acceptable, both of you? We're pretty.
Yeah, are we supposed to do something with this right now before the?
Yes, sir. Take a couple of moments to review
Okay.
it if you haven't already. And then I actually have the slash update that we can do. But just let me know when you guys are ready to
Okay.
proceed. I actually have a couple of other updates as well.
We'll conclude this meeting, the agenda, and then next meeting, Brian will be officially.
Yes, sir.
Got a few trees. Those are there, but
Have you had an assessment then? Have the chief, have Captain Romo?
yeah, I did quite a while ago. When we first built. I came over and put everything.
Yeah, it's like 10 years or later, yeah. Yeah.
So something I want to point out here, in the purpose statement, keep in mind that the center of this agreement is really the spirit of it is as it pertains to the home ignition zone for the neighbor. In other words, if this was the property line, my home was within 100 feet of the property line, my home ignition zone, 100-foot radius starts on my property, goes out to 30 feet to whatever that is, and would only extend into the neighbor's property for the purpose of the home ignition zone. That's really the focus of this.
Mhm.
Now, if the neighbor said, clear whatever the hell you want, or clear all the dead and down, or whatever, they could agree to that. But really, it's always centered around the home ignition zone for the defensible space for the primary person who's requesting it.
Now, I'm not completely done reading, but it looks like this is between the two property owners.
Yep.
Does the village have any, or the fire department, anything to do with that, or
None
you know,
whatsoever.
they go out there and they put a ribbon or paint something on a tree and they agree to cut a tree? That's between them. It's not to meet any particular, I mean, yes, the desire is to meet the defensible space ordinance, but
Yeah, we get into a very sticky situation because we have no legal interest in either of the properties. So we can't dictate one or the other, and it's not set into a law or ordinance that we can dictate anything. But we're, of course, able to come out and help define what that is. And we could mark every tree on the property, but the property owner who's entering into this agreement could say, no, I'm not doing half of these, cut the ribbon off or whatever that is.
yeah,
Or
that's what I was getting at is if the guy agrees to it, but he doesn't agree to the letter of the defensible space ordinance.
Yeah.
Does that create a problem?
there's no problem. It potentially could only create a problem for someone trying to get their certification.
Hmm.
But that problem exists anyways.
Yeah.
If I live next to a bordering property that has a ton of dead and down and a ton of fire load, I can't get, maybe I'm right on the property, like 10 feet from the property
Right.
line. If I can't get a certificate, that exists already. So
Right.
if they allow me to go onto the property and then any
Anything-
of it, it will.
Yeah,
it'll be
anything's an
beneficial.
improvement.
Yes.
I just was uncertain if there was any particular standard that, or if it's just truly between them, pick up all the dead and.
We will make the recommendation for the home ignition zone and what should be cut, and it's between the two property owners to determine what will be cut. And ultimately, the person who owns the property has the say so.
The only teeth we have on enforcing any of this is we're at the owner of certificate.
Correct.
But we do have teeth.
Well,
Somehow.
for now, you haven't been part of these discussions. We've been talking long and furiously about this for several years. This agreement alone took us, how long have we been working on this, Brian?
So I've been around.
13 months at least. I've been here for 2 years, and we threw the idea about 6 months into my tenure, so at least a year and a half. But it's gone through legal. Art Manley's had his guys to look at it, and he's okay with passing it as is. That doesn't mean that we can't make amendments to it. If we figure out that something's not working with this agreement, we can change it next month or next year.
Yes.
We can add some language. One potential thing that's not in here that I'll bring to your attention that we could consider for future states. I'd like to get this passed today. Hello, sir.
Sorry about that.
But something for future states, we're talking about the good neighbor policy and the property access agreement. Feel free to review that in its current state. You've seen that revision. That's Martin Manley's notes have been applied to it. Cleaned up all of the comments that were on that. But one thing we could consider for future states adding into this is specifying route access. Now, our vision was that this is probably good for most neighbors who have neighboring adjacent properties, and that was the full intent of this. But since then, we've realized that there are some very large property owners that are 20, 50 and larger. And we may have to add in some stipulation to allow access on certain access roads into the property or whatever. Not all of those are clearly communicated or clearly identified sometimes, so we've run into that a little bit. But that's really the only thing that's obvious to me that we may consider down the road. But for today, this is what we propose passing today and what we'll be voting on today.
I believe every single property in Angel Fire has utility easements on the sidelines and dirt lines and, they're wooded in the cases, but so I would guess something like this would fall into that category where, use that easement for doing other improvements besides running a power line or a gas line or something like
Yeah,
that.
the challenge being, the two property owners would have to agree on cutting the access if that were the case, but. And just to catch up to speed, Councilor Crane, we're all the way through the agenda. We approved, the previous, notes from the previous meeting. Today's agenda, we did a roll call. We do have a quorum. We went through old business, Rotary Club request, community wildfire, CWDG update. We don't have a lot of information. I was relying on Captain Romo being here for that piece. I don't know a lot about it. The Firewise application status, as you know, we have passed. We are officially a Firewise community.
And my apologies for being late. I was tied up in the other far less interesting meeting. I can assure you, or far less enjoyable, maybe is a better way to say it. Thank you all for your hard work for this committee and committees before. I think getting the Firewise application done is a great thing. We need to make sure at council meeting next Tuesday that is, put forth as a huge milestone for this committee to finally get to that point. It's been a long time coming, so thank you all for getting to that one.
We're just really getting started, but that was a good first step.
Yeah.
And then we moved on to new business. We have, voted for approval for a Firewise secretary. We don't have anybody on the docket right now for that. We have a couple of names in the community that we're throwing around. Not everyone here is going to continue to reach out, try to find somebody. So if you know someone.
And forgive me, do we need to fill a seat to nominate that person too?
Or now Manley is the
Is the
only
only one missing? Okay.
and so we need a fifth.
Okay. My only comment on that for my other committees, it has been very successful to go to Clerk Strickland and have advertised that the committee is looking for new members. We have seated probably 4 members on 3 other committees with that method. So I'm happy to talk to Clerk Strickland.
Okay, yeah.
And say, hey, so we're 4, so we're looking for 1 more for this committee.
Firewise chair and vice chair exchange. We've had multiple conversations where these 2 gentlemen are going to switch. Mike has taken on a role with the Cimarron Watershed Alliance. So he did get voted in and that got passed. And so because of the duties added to that and duties associated with this, we now know what we're getting ourselves into. These guys to swap positions. So we voted for that. There was a quorum. They voted on the exchange and it passed. So Mike will finish up this meeting as being his last meeting as the chairperson. And from the end of this meeting forward, then Brian will be our chairperson and vice chair.
Okay, great. And so we're to the good neighbor policy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
And so now we want to vote on this now.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
I'd
you
like
want
to give you an opportunity to go through one comment that I did make. I mean, 2 comments actually. And you've been here from the beginning, so I know you don't need a whole lot of, but if you'll turn, I think it's to page 2, it's the purpose statement. Just if you're reading through that, the spirit of this agreement is just between 2 property owners. It's one wanting to do the work and the other one allowing work on their property. And it all is centered around the home ignition zone of the person seeking the agreement. So 100 foot from the radius of that home is what we're really concentrating on. But if the property owner having work done on their property says, I don't care what you clear all the dead down or whatever you want, then that's fine. But we're really focusing on those home ignition zones so that that person can get a defensible space assessment certificate for insurance.
I'm going to ask the touchy question. I know Mr. Manley is not here. He's reviewed this. Do we think that this is going to be acceptable for the resort, for those neighbors that bound them? Do you think they will be willing to work within the bounds of this document? Or?
Yes. I don't think in this instance, Mr. Manley would mind if I spoke to our conversation. And in full disclosure, he's very, very busy. Lost a paralegal and didn't have a lot of time to put into it.
Yep.
But at one point in time, he did read this, make his comments to it. And I asked if he was comfortable with me passing this along for a vote in its current state. And he was. And so that's why it's here today.
Okay.
I took the document that we had. I had a Word document version of it. Lindsay had made several comments. I had made, I should probably specify when I mean Lindsay. But former Ambassador Lindsay Reed had made several comments. I had made several comments. We had some back and forth. All of those comments were resolved and placed into the document. And what you're looking at is the final
Sure.
status of that.
Well, I just want to make sure they had ample time to comment. I know that doesn't mean they will grant them all. It will still be up to their discretion, just like it would anyone else's to enact this document or not. But we want to make sure that at least puts them in a favorable position to do so if they chose to.
Yeah, so a couple of noteworthy things about that is, I think that we should probably add some language in our notes that we recognize that this is the initial draft for this document, and we expect that there should be some changes to that, and we should revise that. So let's give this a 30-day and a 90-day review and see if it's working for us and if there's anything that we need to change in between here and then. And the second part was, since Mr. Manley is not here available to read it, we will post this document to the Firewise email thread and allow him one final glance over. And if he has any issues, he can feel free to bring them forward. But I'm pretty comfortable with bringing this forward to council and letting council know, as a initiative of this group to bring it forward to council to be voted on.
Has this gone to village council yet?
Has not gone to village council. This is a committee passing it. We vote on it.
So the vote will be to send to council and or legal. I suspect council's going to have to go to legal before they vote to enact. I mean, it's great work. We would love to pass it just as is, but I'm sure we're going to want council to give it the once over as well.
Yeah, and we were kind of in that state of agreement at one point to go to council, but I think we decided that Mark would give it a go first and take a look at it. So I think we should send it to legal before we take it to council. It's a good point. Thanks for the correction.
Yeah, that looks right. Thank you. Sorry, I'm catching up on questions here.
Appreciate your input.
Wait for some action on this now.
If you all are comfortable with reading it and, having read it, then yes.
So I hear a motion on acceptance of the Angel Fire Good Neighbor Agreement is currently presented to us.
I second.
And point of order, if you'll read the document exactly.
So the exact title is Property Access and Wildfire Mitigation Agreement, AKA the Good Neighbor Policy Agreement. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We get 3 votes. So the Good Neighbor Policy is accepted. Any additional wildland fire update?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Captain Romo sent me a very lengthy report for slash update. We have in March, April, May, and June, respectively, we had 30 yards, 665 yards, 365 yards, and 686 yards delivered to Station 4. So we're doing my real grand math. That's about 1,600 yards in that 4-month span. And then for pickups, we had an additional nearly 400 yards picked up in that same time frame. We've had 65 small through large tree stumps and a total of 761 yards of pine needles have been accepted at Station 3. You guys may not know this, but actually I'll continue with the permit. Sorry, I have some other stats before. 128 slash permits have been issued. 7 wildfire risk assessments have been conducted. I know they're working this week as well. 6 private pile burns were issued. 8 fire assignments within New Mexico. So we've gone out all over the state, southern New Mexico on different assignments, and our guys have been deployed in helping out those fires. Some of those were pre-positioned where they were just in the area looking for spot fires and things like that. Some of them have been active fire rolls. We've had several calls about fly for trees on the roadway. I don't know if you guys realize that downed tree on the roadway. Lisa called something. We'll go that out real quick. And then also, you may not be aware, but occasionally wildland personnel will short staff, and we have multiple EMS or fire calls in a row. We'll utilize the wildland people as drivers, and they'll drive us to the hospital to help free up EMS personnel. I think we're able to stretch our personnel. And yeah, that's it. You guys may not be aware, but we've never had an official travel policy or an official wildland deployment policy until just recently, and we finally got that passed and enacted. So while wildland personnel are out on deployment, they get a 20% increase in their pay. All of that is reimbursable, so while they're out, they're making a lot of money, and they come back home and we're able to get all of that reimbursed from the various agencies that call us out. So it's a great perk for those personnel. But now everything is actually in writing and in a policy, and it's really tightened up. And so from this point forward, I think it's gonna really take a burden off of the finance department primarily and having to. So we're really proud of that work. It's a lot of work for just a few words on a page, but it really makes sense when we're all trying to be on the same page and make sure they get paid appropriately.
If I could here with the fuels update, there was discussion, I think, that happened at council as we were passing that wildland. Manager Weir kind of started out, and I agree. The financing of what I'm about to suggest is going to be the harder part to figure out, but there's at least, it sounds like, an appetite at council to relook at the pine needle policy. That right now, if village residents get a slash permit, they bring in slash and it is taken at no charge and disposed of, whereas we're charging for pine needles. And the thought is twofold. The first is to get rid of the pine needle fee, essentially, as try to roll it in as, it's not slash, but it's essentially going to the same place. It's being burned in the same manner. Now, the overarching concern we have here is Chief Vance and his team have done a lot of work to get rid of the backlog that was there for so many years, and we absolutely don't want to see that return. But I think we do feel like we might have higher compliance rates or people more willing to pick up, get rid of their pine needles if they weren't charged to do so. So that's step one. And I feel like that's a lower cost impact than what I'm about to suggest for step two. But I think at least having those conversations here, I have yet to have anybody tell me it's a bad idea. Hey, if we'll take the slash, take the pine needles, get rid of it all, make sure that it's not going to be overly burdensome on your staff. But the next step is the bigger one. Could we start to intake slash pine needles, all of that, maybe still for a fee, to some of our near neighbors, some of our county neighbors, Black Lake, between here and Eagle Nest, those types of things, because ultimately, does the fire care that
Right.
the retreat is right on the border of Angel Fire and it does not technically qualify for the slash plan? No, it does not. And that particular property is our highest risk corner of the valley. So I guess what I'd like to come up with a way to have this body make some type of long-term recommendation on both of those items and make sure that we're not overriding you. I'm not looking to pile another cost estimate on your desk, but we are ultimately going to rely on your department for this work. So I guess what's your feeling on the first part of that? The pine needles certainly are bringing some revenue in, no question about that, and that gets paid for, but ultimately it's the same. What do you think that would do to just make pine needles part of the existing slash program first? And then second, what comfort level would you need to see, or how far out there do you need to feel like before we could potentially, either for a fee or not, include some of our near county neighbors? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, thanks for asking for the input, first of all, and acknowledging that it does increase the workload.
Hugely.
And this is probably a good opportunity for me to also mention, just for the reminder, that we were able to reconcile all of the 50% fees for everyone who had had a defensible space ordinance assessment done on their property. We took all of the FY27 fees and we broke everybody 50%. If you've had an assessment, we applied all of that to all of the collateral people who had not had an assessment. So if you've had a defensible assessment and you have the certificate, your fee will go down by 50%. Your 50% of your dues are going to be spread over the rest of Angel Fire. We acknowledge that there could be potential problems in the future as time goes on, as more and more people become defensible space compliant. Fewer and fewer people are going to burden the amount of dollars that is spread. So eventually there's going to be one last person that doesn't have a defensible space ordinance certificate, and they're going to bear the village's share of I don't know what that number is, you may,
I want to say that
100,000.
it was, I thought it was north of 6, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So between 300,000 and 600,000, like eventually this is gonna be self-limiting. Or
You don't want to be the last guy then.
Yeah.
The last one of the dance here.
But just to kind of bring John, you up to speed, this was kind of by design, from the beginning. We have a 3-phase plan and I'll have to share that with you as well about the implementation of these types of fee structures and so forth. What we all decided as a group in the fire adapted community meeting, and then to move over to the Firewise community meeting, is to attack the low hanging fruit and take the biggest bite out of the pie that we could. And that was starting with the DSO ordinance. We got that passed. This is the next step, and having people be able to go into adjacent properties and neighboring properties and address those. But there are still some of those things that need to be resolved, and this is one of them.
At this level of compliance, the fee difference, the non-compliant fee, I think, went up by 50 cents. It was not huge cost burden shift in other ways, but over the next many years, you're going to see those fees go from $10.50 a month to 11, 12, 15, however that ratchets up over time. So it is done that way by design to nudge people in that compliance direction.
And so the language that we baked into that is, until we get to a 50% compliance rate, is when we'll escalate things into potentially cleaning and leaning property or things that are more punitive for not having your defensible space ordinance. But we're not near 50% compliant yet. So we're working towards that. So to answer your question, this may be a good time to maybe address like incorporating maybe just a ballpark figure, something that makes sense. Spitballing is like the amount of revenue that we generate when we have 1 year's data collection.
Yep.
We don't know what that amount is gonna be yet.
Yep.
I don't think it's gonna be very much. You know, we've gotten a couple of really big reconciliation, but that's been like $3,000, $4,000 for some really large stumps that have been turned in, believe it or not. Because we have an escalation fee, small stumps, medium, and then custom order. And so just to address that specifically, pine needles and stumps are very difficult for us to process. They'll burn for days sometimes.
It's very labor intensive on pine needles in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, labor intensive on the pine needles because we have to get a very hot fire going and then sprinkle them in small steps. If you've ever had a campfire and thrown a bunch of pine needles on, you know exactly what happens. But also for stumps, we have to store them for over a year and let them dry out over a year. And then we'll get a really, really hot fire going and then put them on top of that. So stumps, those two things are really.
Yeah, no, the question, in the compliance. How far down to the ground would you want to stop? Be a compliance?
There are recommendations. I think it's less than 1 foot or 1 foot or less generally. There has been concerns brought up about erosion. You know, some people say, well, we'll just push the tree over and take the whole root ball out. That has issues also, the erosion. So generally 1 foot and less, cutting that down is ideal. I don't know if you had one that was 2 foot high, if anybody would care all that.
It was just, you know, a lot of times when we're going out, cutting stuff down, hardwood, you know, people's like.
Yeah.
So we're not leaving up.
The too tall to stop.
Well, usually what I do is cut it at 3 foot or a little less out each. Then once the tree's down,
Then you
cut it,
cut it. That's what I do on my.
yeah,
It's way easier to sort up here.
If anything's sort of access, you know, the skid steers or tractors, you can get it.
Yeah, it's nice.
There's some sticking up there.
Yeah, well, and there's not a lot of stump grinders.
Yeah.
Up here in the valley. I know there's 1 or 2, but I've not seen a lot of people.
Right.
It's pretty expensive, I think, to have somebody come grind a dozen stumps on property.
I think if I'm cutting a tree, I want to cut it at 3 feet. If I was a property owner, I'd want to cut at ground level as close to the surface as possible.
come back.
Shoot for 6 inches in the state land project. I mean, it's, you know, like I said, less than a foot.
Yeah.
Judge.
But to derail the conversation, I think looking at the amount of fees that we collect over 1 year, and then looking at the, what it would cost for us to hire a couple more people, depending on what those are, I think that's what we're looking at. And the third component would be any additional equipment that we would need to do that. And we probably need a 3-year comprehensive plan, to work that in.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
well, I think, maybe we look at the Pine Needle fees collected, because we're gonna stop taking those, what we push that to November 1, do I have that in my head right?
Yeah.
So maybe we look at what the total Pine Needle charges that you guys collected was this year and figure out, okay, is this $5,000 we're about to let go of, or $25,000?
Yeah.
Um,
So we'll have, really good dollar amounts down to the penny now.
Okay.
Now that we're collecting all
Yep.
just on electronic form and we're not accepting cash, it really helps with the record keeping. And then we'll also have a pretty good outline on what we've collected. And I'll go ahead and pass this report around, but it gives some numbers. For example, 1,400 yards, it looks like we collected in, 2025. Or 9,000 cubic yards of, that was picked up. So about 23,000 yards is what we used to slash in general.
Right.
But we'll have it broken down now by stumps, pine needles and slash.
Yeah. What do you guys think on the near county
Yeah,
idea? Is that,
That's a good idea because it's impacts us, but
if, and I know you do work all over the county or so you do you think that if we offered it as a fee for service for New York County neighbors, it would be even attractive, or it would have to be free for anyone to really want to take advantage of it?
Well, I imagine it depends on the property owner, but, way I see this is whether it's Firewise or Angel Fire's efforts in general, or the county efforts, really, this is a lifetime program.
Oh, for sure.
It's gonna go forever. I don't know what your goals are as a fire department, but I would think about growing the program. You know, right now you have one crew and one slash pickup truck, and you got one chipper and whatnot, and then maybe with fees and whatnot, slowly over time, as you can justify the expense, and then you see what the revenue's coming in. That might be a part of the puzzle to grow the program, so maybe you actually get 2 chippers and you get that Feller big fancy machine, and grow the program over years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. I would think that the revenue that could maybe be generated throughout the community, including outside of Angel Fire, might help, the chicken and the egg kind of thing, you can't grow the program if you don't have revenue, and you can't get the revenue until you can process it and handle it.
Right.
But seems like that would be a good thing for the area.
When Captain Romo was down handling the burn at Hidden Lake, is there any money to change hands for that, or did we just do that for free?
There was money that exchanged hands. We entered an agreement. Association is Stewart Forest, and they paid us basically our deployment rates for that.
So there is some precedence for us doing this type of activity in the county.
Yes.
And in those situations like Hidden Lake, I think it's gonna make way more sense to do the burn on site versus bringing all that material in, that just the trucking costs alone. But if you're right next to it, like, if you're Taos Pines or you're near Black Lake,
Yeah.
it might make sense if the fees work to, hey, I can haul this somewhere where I know it's gonna be safe to burn. And maybe it's not exactly cost neutral, but I just wanted to have that conversation with you all since it came up at council meeting. Let's continue to look at that in the fall.
A little bit more input.
Okay.
We do occasionally have, especially contractors from outside the area, and even some private citizens trying to dump up there, and they're turned away.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if that's 100% if they always get turned away, if we just kind of look the other way sometimes.
Well, and some of the smart ones, I'm sure, have a address in town that they'll associate this particular, I get that.
But we'll go back to like the inception of this program and when we started it and the fee structure and that
Sure.
type of thing. I had several warnings that as soon as we turned this thing on, we weren't going to turn it off. As soon as we started the defensible space ordinances, we were going to get inundated. We
Yep.
already had 20 years backlog of slash, and there was a lot of questions whether we would be able to handle the amount of slash. And truthfully speaking, here we are a couple of years later, we've turned it on and we're still able to manage it. I think we're probably 60% of our capacity. We could probably afford another 40%. Now, keep in mind, the further you eat into that and the more slash you bring me, the less opportunity I have for these guys to go out on deployments and make a lot of money. And before you walk in, or no, maybe you were here, when those guys deploy, they make a lot of money,
Yeah.
so they really want to be gone. But maybe we could adjust our tolerance levels and just understanding that we might be bringing slash in all summer long and it might start getting really ugly. And we have a lot of piling, just having faith that when we have the right moisture contact and snow on the ground, we're gonna do large pile burns and we'll be able to take care of large amounts in a very small amount of time like we did with the 20 years ago.
I think there's also, we could consider, again, county slash, because I don't know in my history that we've never charged village residents for slash. So one, we'd have to come up with a number of what we would need to charge per cubic yard of slash pine needles, because there's not a slash number right now. But the other thing we could potentially do is, okay, county partners, we will do this intake for you, but it needs to be in this window. We could say, bring us your slash September, October. Don't try to bring it June, July, August during the peak of deployment season. I know that makes it a little harder, but I'm just trying to, in concept, think of the guardrails here that doesn't mess up your deployments and your
Well,
team as
I have
much.
a little bit of input on that, and I think that's, if we keep turning on multiple faucets.
Yep.
They're gonna converge at some point,
For
we're gonna
sure.
be extremely overwhelmed in a very short amount of time.
Yep.
It's gonna take that, so turning on the faucets with DSOs, you guys pay me to look out for the village
Yep.
citizens of Angel Fire, and so I really wanna focus on that and encourage people to, because the more things, the more hands we have,
Right.
the more slash we're bringing in. We're not serving the village citizens
Yep.
by promoting this project and things like that. That's where I'd like to keep my focus. But of course, I work
For
in the
sure.
will of the council and everybody else. We just have to consider that when we're trying to take in outside slash.
And I would say that I think council would be far more interested in addressing the pine needles fee first. And whether that is in next slash season or the slash season after, obviously there's a giant pile of dirt over here occupying, time and efforts there. No questions asked. We will address the free versus charged pine needle process well before the county process.
Yeah.
But I just think long-term goals for this committee, both of those seem like reasonable goals to me, unless you all feel differently about
But
it.
just shooting from the hip, we did increase our rate schedule this year according to CPI, Consumer Pricing Index. It ended up being about 4.2% that we increased fees. Since it was new to the structure, we didn't increase fees for pine needles and stumps. We had just turned that on a couple of months previously. But even if we had a 50% increase in fees, it'd go from like $10 a month to $15 a month. It wouldn't be a really big impact again until we start getting into these 50% compliance and beyond. Then it's really going to be impactful to someone. But I have just shooting from the hip, I think that if we increase by 50%, we probably would be in pretty good shape. I just don't know how much money that is, how much revenue
Sure.
that is, and how many, where we utilize those funds.
Well, no, and I appreciate that. Let's focus on, at the end of this season, seeing what monies were collected for pine needles. And then considering getting rid of that fee for village residents first, whether that's for the upcoming season or 2 or 3 down the road is going to be dictated by ultimately what your department thinks is reasonable. I'm just thinking longer term, if you guys do such a good job with the free pine needles like you have with the last, then maybe 2-3 years down the road, we are ready to look at those near county neighbors a little more.
But even for residents, locals, maybe there's enhanced maybe there's a basic flash fee that covers X amount of services, and maybe over time, the fire department could offer enhanced services that they charge a greater fee for, whether it's the chipping on site, like they've done at my place.
Sure.
Or I know Romo's mentioned a few times that there's possibilities of doing, I guess, having your guys oversee some controlled burns like on my property.
On the bigger lots.
On bigger properties. So, and there may be other services that you could say, okay, you get a minimum services for free here, but we could do overtime as the program grows, you get more equipment and whatnot.
Right.
And then generate some revenue there. I don't know
Right.
what's legal.
No, I-
Maybe that's something like a weekend program on Saturdays and Sundays. We open up overtime opportunities for the employees that work there, especially through the winter, to come in and do some pile burns or
Sure.
whatever, and we charge the overtime rate and they can make some money and our costs are covered. And
I think it's a good idea. It does cut both ways though, and then we also want to see I would say this, we want to see the number of contractors, private
Right.
contractors offering these services grow. You know, because we need those contractors to have healthy businesses to address the DSO.
Exactly,
Um,
but you also want to support a program. You're building a program here,
Well, I'm gonna
and
be-
any revenue sources.
I'll be fully transparent with this. Manager Weir's made it very clear that the wildland team needs to basically eat what they kill. He likes to say, meaning, these aren't gonna pay our bills, but, going on deployments does. And so it's necessary that we generate revenue, $350,000, $400,000 a year to keep the program afloat in the first place. And that's what really pays our bills.
I think one thing I know Chief Vance and I have talked about is the roads that are not on the emergency evac plan, that again, in the winter and downtime, not deployment time, you have the wildland team here letting that crew get to some of our easement thinning. Because ultimately, not that you can't hire that out to a contractor, but it is a little easier to have village employees doing work in the village easement, particularly if that can be done seasonally, where there's, hey, it's November 15th, we don't have any deployments, we're gonna spend the next 2 weeks tackling this 1.5 miles of easement work, so. All great ideas, I think the Pine Needle one is kind of the easy win.
Yeah, that's,
That's kind of where I'm at, like, I get it, and I like nobody wants to pay the fees.
Sure.
And I've already talked with Captain Romo about how they've been in arguments about what a hefty bag will hold. You know, what's the cubic capacity of a hefty bag?
Sure.
You know, and it is, it's like, I took a dump trailer the other day, it was $50.
Yeah.
Right, was it 10 yards? You know,
Yep.
it wasn't bad. It
Yeah.
was off our property, and I got another one coming, so.
Yep.
Because I think that, and I get it, but like you said, the pine needles are more time consuming, harder to get rid of. Hopefully it's relieved the burden on solid waste. But that is revenue because it is thin, right? Just to keep these guys, the staff we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
We got a great team going right now, and to keep those guys happy
Right.
and to keep that budget up there, the pine needles is a little bit
A
of,
little bit.
they're killing what they're eating, right? Like they're
Yeah,
eating what they kill.
yeah.
That is their main thing. But with those fees, and I know it will deter some people from bringing them, but those fees feed back into the program.
You do.
Like Mike says, so we can grow the program.
Yep.
And I'm all for opening up to the county for fees.
Sure.
are pine needles feasibly compostable?
It takes you.
The years they don't, yeah,
Yeah.
they just pile and get gray.
And this is the best thing we've seen happen. I mean, since I've been here, because they would get piled up and that was part of those big backlogs. Or the trucking of, half a container to wagon mount full of pine needles.
I guess
It's so far the best solution,
right.
but it hurts the residents in their pocketbook, because every time it's like, oh.
Well, and ultimately the thought is,
another $100 to pay somebody.
right, if you're gonna hire, James from Solid Waste or one of the other,
Exactly.
the Benjamins to come pick up pine needles, well, they just
You're already-
pack those fees on to the bill, right?
Yeah.
Of the labor.
Yeah.
20% markup.
Yeah,
Plus-
yeah,
Plus, yeah, that's.
plus.
your plus.
I did also want to mention, keep in mind, when we have a deployment crew out, we typically send 4, we've only been sending 3. And when they're out on deployment, we only have 2 people back left here. And so depending on where they're at with their schedule, it's quite a workload on those guys.
Sure.
So we have an engine boss that's posted right now. It's been open for about 2 months and we haven't gotten any real applicants. I reached out to one applicant that we got, he never returned back. So it's a little thin right now.
Yeah.
We could use some personnel. So there's a challenge. So like if we did have a fire that happens locally, we're gonna have to have answers for where are our people right now? Well, they're deployed everywhere because they're making our money.
Sure.
It's a double-edged sword.
Do they just break even for the village, or does the village actually kind of make a profit on them out on deployment?
It pretty much breaks even. All monies that are reimbursed have to go directly to the employee. So we can't charge like a 20% upcharge and keep it for the village and then only pass on the remaining. But we do add on a 5% admin fee for our time to process all the paperwork. It's pretty laborious paperwork. Ask Captain Romo about that. So pretty much we just break even. Where we do make money is off of the equipment cost. So depending on the apparatus, they'll give us X amount of dollars per day that's out. We've had a lot of string of bad luck of vehicles breaking down while out on deployment. We have a new vehicle. We haven't got it implemented yet, but the hope is that we replace those older vehicles that are long tooth. Our engine is a 2012 and typical 10-year service like this, it needs to be replaced.
So,
So
yeah, from the manpower perspective, it's break even at best, but you do get not a free ride, but you can play the game and replace the equipment, and so.
But it helps support the department and your crew.
most,
And if you use the seasonal thing, like,
Yeah.
then keep these guys busy with enhanced services or whatever in the winter
well,
time.
our biggest benefit is by missing wages. So for a 2-week deployment, they're out, we're gonna get reimbursed all of that cost. We don't have the money going out from the village to pay for them to be here.
Comes from the incident, right, instead of.
Correct. So we have that employee year round, but this 3-month window is being paid for by the feds.
Right.
But we really need at minimum 3 people in the yard at all times. Like that's for minimum work to.
Yeah,
And so sometimes it's true. I've been in there and it stretches them.
Yeah.
And I've been gone a
But
lot.
in the long run, if you could also take 3 months in the winter and have these guys and make appointments, schedule, okay, we're gonna go to Labradue's place, or we're gonna do this, or we're gonna do that, and I'm booked up in a
Well,
normal
I'll
winter
take
where
this-
we have a lot of
I'll
snow.
take this time to complain a little bit, but like, we can only get so big before it starts stretching me as a manager.
Right.
We have a pretty big, I think I have the biggest department in the village already, so at some point it may become its own entity, its own shop as
Sure.
in slash department, and just has its own infrastructure and chief and everything else, and that breaking point is not too far in the distance if we start.
Yeah,
We have a offhand chief, like a battalion chief.
Correct.
Yes, I kind of see it as the old gate bridge thing. By the time you get the whole bridge painted, it's time to start.
Yeah.
And that's the DSO.
Yeah.
If I had to throw out a number, I'd say every 10 years, you're gonna be,
Yeah.
starting over again. So.
Well, and that's what kind of funded this conversation was, it's not a lot, and we're not trying to, screw up the budget, but if pine needles were free for village residents like Slash, could we see that DSO compliance number creep up 10% faster year over year?
Sure.
Yeah.
That is something to consider, because I think the guys that you have right now, the crew right now is great.
Yep.
I've been real impressed with every one of them. It's happening. Like you said, it could use more.
Sure.
The budget allows.
Yep.
But that's the hard part, right? And if that county component could come in, but
And that,
stumps have to be.
Right.
Charged for.
they have to, and the pine needles too,
Just
because
pine needle.
they are so labor intensive. So it's kind of a little bit of sleight of hand of, okay, village residents, we're gonna take your fees away. Can we make that cash up over here, provided we don't choke the process down? It sounds good, but that's a lot of ifs to
I think
get that.
Right.
It comes back around, I think, to Firewise, and I did have one last thought. That, didn't we talk about putting something, because Brian, you had trouble accessing information through the website. And then we talk about
Yeah.
maybe having our own little, on the village website under fire department, Firewise committee or Firewise, USA or whatever, to start publicizing this and reaching out to the general public, particularly our absentee owners who aren't always aware of what's going on around here.
Yeah, where the DSO's there and this one's there.
Yeah,
All
get that right, particularly now that we're official.
Well,
But, also then you use that for a marketing effort too.
Well, and exactly, it wouldn't just go on the,
People have huge investments here and you say, toss us some pine needles or whatever, we're protecting your property, so.
right. Well, and it's not just the village website, but I think the Visit Angel Fire website, like we need to make a big splash that Firewise has been achieved, that status that's been, now obviously there's more work to do, but just everywhere we can say Firewise to get people's attention, part-timers, visitors, all of that.
Here's one last thought. Romo and I were BSing around, but, again, thinking about the wealthy property owners and versus us local guys, but, is there a way for, say, somebody to, like NPR, where you put NPR in your will? Can you do Angel Fire Firewise? Is there a way for people to donate, to the cause, to help protect Angel Fire and keep Angel Fire beautiful and a lovely place forever and ever?
Good question.
There's a mechanism to donate to the village, and you do have the ability to specify what department it goes to.
Yeah.
Firewise is not a department, but that could go to slash or wildland.
Something to think about. I
Yeah.
mean.
Want to
Yeah,
sponsor a
people-
fire truck?
Yeah,
Sponsor a
well,
fire truck?
Well, exactly,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's your guys saving somebody who had a heart attack, or whether it's just, you know, protecting the valley and their investment in Angel Fire, and they got a big old house on top of the mountain. And, they say, oh, yeah, I'd donate towards a new fire truck.
We'll start naming rights for all of your vehicles. That's what we're going to, right?
Sponsorships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for the decals on the side. I like this plan. I do.
Donated by BJ Lindsay.
Yeah.
That's how it helps.
Lindsay Land and Excavations.
The Lowe's fire truck.
Yes, or ambulance, we should all need a fire.
Seriously, though, I think there's an opportunity there as well.
Or excavator.
Yeah.
Okay.
The problem is that somebody's gonna wanna donate to a road grader. Now, somebody's gonna wanna say, I want my road plows.
So they're gonna say, I wanna see that.
Yeah, I wanna see that road grader in front of my house.
Not that other one without my name on it.
Yeah, yeah.
They can contribute to it towards my Kubota tractor.
On the, I guess, in that vein, can we put Firewise? I know you're always doing hats and things like that. Can we co-brand, and do they have any of those programs where if we put their logo on our stuff, they'll have any kind of branding, marketing allowance on that? Or I don't know Firewise
I
that.
didn't see anything on the website. The only thing I saw was we're supposed to get a plaque, and then we get 2 signs, and I don't know, it doesn't say how big they are or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing that I've seen. Everybody doesn't hurt to ask, or.
We had also designed a Firewise house sign, so if you get a certificate, you get a house sign and put that in front of the yard.
That's a good idea.
We had like a $1,200 budget for that. They never ended up getting ordered before Lindsay left.
Okay.
So that's, oh, by the way, we were gonna, we just posted it today. We're gonna hire another fire ambassador. So
Good.
position went out, it's on the village website. We'll have a social media post by this afternoon.
So all these questions we're peppering with you now. There'll be a new human. Ask all
Yeah,
that.
we were assessing whether we'd be able to get away with not having that position, but I mean, because we could use those funds towards another firefighter.
Sure.
On deployment and things. It's quite a bit to carry, so.
It's hard to manage all of the admin Firewise stuff and be out on a pile burn.
Yeah.
Working implement somewhere.
Yeah, and I've noticed we've kind of slacked off a little bit on our reach, and so it was better with. this was.
Okay, any other business? That will, 5:13, we call this meeting adjourned. It's a good meeting.
So again, apologize for being late. Thank you, for, Chief Vance for pulling this all